I'm Belle Holder, the host of UNCTAD Conversations. Today we're at Sweetfield Manor, a quaint boutique hotel located just a stone's throw from the UNESCO Heritage Site at St. Anne's Fort and the Garrison Savannah here in Barbados. It's one of our favorite locations at which to shoot. You know, the COVID-19 pandemic all but caused the cultural and performance industries here in Barbados to grind to a halt. One person who knows firsthand what it's like to have a career which depends on gate receipts and entertainment is today's guest. He is a pick of the crop king, a singer, a songwriter, a producer, and a former television host. He's now a government minister with responsibility for culture. Our conversation with Minister John King is straight ahead. Do you miss it? Do you miss the stage?
I would be lying if I said no.
Right.
It's one of those things, if you've done it long enough and you've been successful in it, the roar, the crowd, the adrenaline of being there nightly and, you know, having to entertain people and getting the opportunity also to bare your soul with people, because oftentimes people, they just see the entertainment part of it, where, you know, everybody has a good time if it's a party, but then there are shows that are a little bit more serious. They deal with issues, we talk about things, people learn a little bit more about you, and you also learn a little bit more about people. So for me, I guess if you can use the word edutainment, that was part and parcel of what I miss.
You're on a different stage now, a governmental stage, but still a national stage. And I would think the last year and a half for you as a minister responsibility for culture and seeing the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic and what it did for people in the cultural and performance industries, literally with no work. What was your immediate response?
My immediate response was, my word, here we go again.
Right.
You know, people are putting a lot to the pandemic where the arts and creative industries are concerned, but they've always been volatile. You know, it's always has its peaks and valleys, and you learn very early how to manage by preparing yourself when it's at the peak to be able to ride through the valleys. I think with the pandemic, this one caught people kind of like off, not unprepared. And so it was even worse than what we would have experienced in the past. But it also gives people the opportunity to be creative, to think outside the proverbial box, and to approach their business end of it in a complete different way. And I think between the advent of, let's say, the internet and where it's at, that gives us an opportunity to engage with the world,
right.
not just our 166 square miles. And I think a lot of artists are beginning to take advantage of that huge worldwide market.
And how to monetize it.
How to monetize it.
But before we even go deeper into the internet, which we definitely have to talk about, because most of the artists, especially the younger ones, gravitated towards the online forum. Mm-hmm. It's interesting what you said about the industry, because I think COVID perhaps made us, more of the general public, notice the hardships of some of the artists. But I think you're right in that some of those hardships already existed, because there are so many artists who depended so heavily on crop over each year, and then throughout other times of the year would be struggling.
Yeah.
So we've heard artists talk about insurance, health insurance. Should I insure my voice? Or what is being done to look at those things in terms of maybe the artists unionizing, you know what I mean? And then there's more of a greater voice in numbers.
I have been a part of the sector for 30 plus years. There have been numerous attempts to do all of those things in the past, and we've never been able to get them done. And I think the biggest problem has always been the whole idea of us being able to trust each other and not see each other as rivals within this small space for the market share, you know, but being able to see as you said, the strength in numbers, but also the wisdom in being able to do things not only for ourselves as the performing artists, but for the generations who are to come, you know, who may want to be involved within that sector. Now, when I talk about this sector, I'm not just talking about singers and musicians, because often people think that because that's what I did, that's all we're talking about. We're talking about the entire gamut of it, from innovators to media, visual artists. You know, it just goes on and on. Everything that will fall underneath what we term the orange economy these days. And I think these things are very, very necessary. But like I said, there have been so many attempts to do them, you know, to join unions, to get the insurance programs going. And I know that organizations like COSGAP have tried in their own way to do that with the persons within their, you know, who fall underneath their gambit, so to speak. I know that various artists themselves have had conversations with like Barbados Workers Union and other people to do that. But there's never been a sustained effort to ensure that you get it done.
Right.
And I think that COVID-19 has forced a lot of people to take these matters seriously as a group. Because one of the things that happens, and I like to be very honest when I have to speak about these things, is that, you know, a section of the society is, once it's doing well, it's not too concerned about what's happening with the others.
But that leads right into even the theme of UNCTAD, which is from inequality and vulnerability to prosperity for all.
All, exactly.
And when it comes to artists, especially the performance artists, a part of their business is to look glamorous. A part of the business is to look like everything, because that's when you're performing, that's what your audience wants to see. So it's hard for an artist who is on stage looking glamorous the night before tell us that they're struggling and can't pay their bills the next morning. So maybe it's hard for people to comprehend that.
That'd be hard for anybody, any person, you know, especially if you are more concentrating on the show aspect of show business and you forget the business.
Right.
And I always tell people, the show is for the audience, the business really is for you. And you have to find a way to manage both of the expectations, so to speak. And you cannot just see it as something that you do. You have to change the language, you know. So I've always been one who, like with musicians, I always would say to people, do not allow people to tell you, oh, so where are you playing tonight? Because you're not playing. You're going to work. You're actually going to work. It's not playing. Because playing gives a connotation of fun and you know, it's lighthearted and whatever, but this is serious business. And so therefore you have to see it as that. And there are times when you have to stand your ground. You may be the only person in the room who stands their ground because the norm is, you know, well, entertainment and these things, they're not really real business, this type of thing. Although we look across the water at the multi-millionaires and today billionaires in various aspects of the entertainment industry, and we marvel at what they're doing. Given we're an extremely small market, but again, I go back to the world actually being your marketplace now. So there are really no excuses as to why you can't go out there and try to find your niche and expand beyond these 166 square miles. But I think it really starts with, and I use this word loosely, education.
Right.
Not formal education in terms of going into school and that sort of thing, but educating yourself about the business, educating yourself about life itself, and then applying the things that you've learned into your own circumstances, because it's not a one-size-fits-all. You know, people are different. People have different priorities. People have, you know, different strengths and different weaknesses that they have to deal with. But you as the individual have to be able to say, okay, I may not be good with money. That might not be my strong point. But you can't be afraid to say, you know what, I'm going to hire someone.
I need an accountant. I need a
exactly.
manager.
you know, to deal with those things for me. I need somebody who's going to market what it is that I do. I need somebody to give me some direction in certain things. You just can't be afraid of it. You have to be able to see these things as being an investment in yourself. Right. And not as being, oh, I'm the one on stage, and so all these other people coming to get my money. No, they're not coming to get your money. You know, you have to be the one who understands that these are the chains or the links within the chain that you need if you don't have the prerequisite skills to handle that aspect of it yourself. You know, and I find it difficult sometimes when I listen to the general public talk about artists and put them in boxes and say things like, oh, he's an artist, as if that automatically means that they're less than, or that they're incapable of being able to think in a certain way, or whatever. You know, you see people in multi-billion-dollar businesses, but they're not everything. They're not the accountants. They're not the marketers. They're the owners, but they're not all the other things. And you have to be able to see it the same way for the artists.
All right, so when we come back, we're going to talk about the role of the National Cultural Foundation and how they've been able to help a number of artists, but we were still hearing perhaps there's some additional need. All right, so UNCTAD Conversations continue right after this. Welcome back to UNCTAD Conversations. I'm talking to Minister John King, who has responsibility for culture. Can you tell us how the NCF came forward during these COVID times?
I think they really should be applauded for what they've been able to do and what they continue to do. So one of the first things they did was in the midst of it all, when there was no work happening, everything was like locked down or whatever.
It was radio silence.
Yeah, there was radio silence, so to speak. They said, okay, you know what, let's see, whilst you have this downtime, what are projects that you can do that you wouldn't have had the time to do it if you were up and running in your regular thing. And a lot of people came forward with some wonderful ideas and stuff, and they got support to do
financial support
to do the projects that they couldn't do. And then once that was completed, we also had a lot of, I should say, content that was shared with our local television station, CBC, and that has been on air. So you had, as they say, you kill two birds with one stone. Right. You got content, and the artists got something that they themselves can work with, that is theirs. And from them being shown on television, there's advertising in it for everybody, you know. So CBC has content to show. The artist has
online content.
Online content. They also are a little bit more prominent in the minds of Barbadians to see what is really happening on the ground and what people are capable of doing. And again, and it goes into the online space, it's going to the rest of the world. So you really couldn't ask for a better initiative than that. But as you mentioned earlier when we were chatting, there was still some cries in some quarters of not being able to take up that particular offer. And so what we've been doing since then is we've been putting on another series of concerts, so to speak, for those in the music. But when we talk about concerts, people always think, okay, so it's just the actual players and the thing, but it's the providers. It's a whole range of people who will benefit from those. And we're still looking to do some other things that would help our dancers, our visual artists, other persons as we go along. But so it's an ongoing process. But at least we were able to probably help some people through what I consider to be the most trying time of it so far.
And I really want to impress upon culturalists, performers, artists, don't sit back and feel as though the same people benefit. You have to come forward. You have to make your voice heard. There is a process. There is a website for the National Cultural Foundation.
That's correct.
So reach out, ask questions, and get the information. But know that you have to put in some work. It's not just a basic handout.
You have to arm yourself. You have
Right.
to arm yourself with the knowledge of what is available out there. And all it takes is an email, a telephone call, or I'm as accessible as anybody else on the planet. You know, I've been a part of this sector for years. And so I have an open door. It's just a simple conversation, but I think oftentimes people begin to think, well, okay, so he's a minister now, so I can't pick up the phone and just call John like I would call him before. That's on you. That's not on my end. That's on you, because you can.
Right.
And I can give you, and I've tried, we've had a number of sessions with the artistic community where we try to explain to them how you go through the process of getting grant funding from the Business Development Department or the NCF. How do you get technical assistance with different things? What are the things that we would like to support? And also to get a better sense of what are some of the challenges that you as the artist face that we would not know about.
Right.
Because as you mentioned, if you don't come out and talk to us, then we're operating on what we know.
I want to talk about the blow of not being able to stage a crop over festival for 2 years in a row. I think Trinidad was lucky in terms of timing that they were able to have their festival last year. But we have not had crop over now for 2 years in a row. And I know that's millions of dollars lost. And I also want to make sure that people know it's not just artists that lose out by not having a crop over festival.
Exactly. If you talk about the wine and spirits industry, that's going to take a hard blow. Food is going to take a hard blow. Travel, a hard blow. Accommodation, hard blow. Rentals in terms of homes, cars,
hair, nails, everything.
I mean, you could just, it cuts across everything. And that's why for years you would hear us talk about the importance of investing in the festival, not just at the governmental level, but at the public sector level, from persons being able to support the bands by buying costumes and simple things like that. Buying arts and craft things, going to a fete, whatever. People just see these things as being, oh, it's just a party, it's just a thing. But it is a business, and there are persons whose sole livelihood stems from that business, from those 8 weeks or 10 weeks, however you want to look at it, of activity. And so it's incumbent upon us, or it's imperative rather, that everyone understands the trickle-down effect that it has and how it influences how some people survive. This has been a major blow for a number of people. And again, we've been trying to help promoters, band leaders, and other persons who are in that category of persons who really look forward to that time to try to help them as much as we can also. But the truth is that we've got to find or use this time to rethink, to re-engineer, and to also improve on what we've been doing for a long time.
Right.
Because the truth is,
go ahead.
But the truth is that sometimes when you're in it, you're just doing it. It becomes like, okay, so if you're a calypsonian, I'm gonna get some music. If you're a producer, I know X amount of sounds are coming. If you're a band leader, I know I got to get my band. I'm trying to get 500 people, 1,000, whatever the number is, and whatever. And we can become very comfortable in the space doing what we do. But things change just a little bit. I think this gives us an opportunity to, as a group, to sit down and look at the festival itself and begin to rethink it, reimagine it, and to see how we can expand on what we do. Again, using the digital space itself and going beyond the diaspora, who usually would have to come home to enjoy these things. We've got to start thinking in terms of, okay, so if people are not flying as much as previously, or people, because once things open back up, people are still going to be a little hesitant. So there's going to be that period where, yes, you're open back up, but your numbers of people flying and these things. We got to be thinking now, how do we reach people where they're at? so that the Eskimo in the middle of wherever must be able to think, oh, this festival in Barbados, I'll go online and watch it,
Right.
and actually pay to see what it is. And I have virtual tours, and I could be able to, you know, be in a band from where I am. So we have to get our own creatives on the island to start thinking in these ways for us. And what is it we're going to do in terms of the structure of the festival on a whole? Mm-hmm. Are we going to do the same thing? Are we going to just have, you know, costume bands coming from this particular point, or are we going to seek to expand and do things island-wide so that there's a lot of activity all over the place? Are we going to involve the communities a lot more than they are being involved at this point in time? And are we going to invite our neighbors, not just our Caribbean neighbors, but our South and North American neighbors, to have bands, to be represented in it, to be a part of it? The story of the migration of Barbadians across the globe is one that, in my mind, we should be using to draw people to this thing, and the contribution of Barbadians
Right.
across the world. How do we tie all of these things together that gives us a stronger festival?
All right. So while we talk about and look at the restructuring of crop over and the migration toward the online space, we really need to talk about new trade, ownership, copyrights. I think a lot of us really, it's new. And so we really need to educate our performers about their content and ownership. So we're going to continue this conversation right after this. Minister King, you touched on something just now that I've actually been thinking about for a long time. And that is the numbers. You know, we always say there are Barbadians living everywhere in the world. Does the Barbados government have any ideas of the amount of people, amount of Barbadians living abroad?
I think the Ministry of Foreign Affairs will be the best persons to actually give us those numbers. But I mean, I have in my time been hearing, you know, numbers sporadically for different parts of the world. So like in the United States, you hear about 60,000 Barbadians
That sounds low to me.
It sounds low.
Yeah.
But I don't know if the numbers include those persons of Barbadian descent, if they're only documented Barbadians living in the place or whatever. But I think this is something which they're working on, and it's very important as we go forward. When we look at, let's say, the entertainment industry in the United States in particular, you know, since the rise of Rihanna, you've been hearing of so many people who are actually coming out of the woodworks and they're saying, but we have roots in Barbados. This person is my great grandmother, and this person is my auntie, and this thing, and those are the things that we need to tap into. To see how we can get that expertise in all the different things, from film to music to business, you know, entrepreneurship, all sorts of things. We've got to be able to tap into all of that. And as we mentioned earlier, this thing that we call the orange economy.
So I know that there's
so
a
wide.
misperception that the orange economy really just focuses on entertainment. Can you define it for us?
I don't know if I can define it because I think it's undefinable. What I can say is that it's constantly growing, and it's very dynamic. So you're talking innovation, you know, you're talking media, you're talking marketing, all of these things fall underneath the orange economy, because here's where you're creating all the time. You're always being creative. So for me, it's a sector that is, if you try to narrow it down to any one or two things, you're doing it a disservice, because it's creativity has no boundaries, and it continues to shift, and it continues to grow all the time.
Well, one aspect of the orange economy we mentioned earlier is the online space. So what is being done to make sure that people are educated about ownership, about copyright? Because now you're sending your information, which you own, all over the world. And I know that I might have something I might copyright something here in Barbados, but what does that mean for the US, for Canada, for the UK?
Well, let me tell you, one of the first things that has been done so far is that we've had a review of our copyright, intellectual property laws and all of these things. They're going to be coming to Parliament pretty soon for passing. We've upgraded the thing. We looked at what's happening around the world and trying to bring everything in line so that we're there. I think that's the main thing. You have to start there. And once you've done that, then you have to do the educational process, which, again, you've got partners such as COSCAP can help us with that. The NCF will do its part. The Division of Culture will do its part. The ministry responsible for KAIPO, they will do their part. So there has to be a massive PR, if you put it that way, exercise that word thing.
I think you missed one. I think it needs to happen in our schools as well. And it needs to happen, not at tertiary level.
No.
I feel like our primary school children need to start understanding ownership, because they love the online space.
Yeah.
So we could start them as young as they start to tap on a telephone and tap on online and on a keyboard, that they should be learning about ownership.
I agree with you, and that's the same way I feel about a lot of other things that fall under the orange economy, that it should be compulsory at the primary school level. You see, once you get people into these things and understanding it, then they have a different appreciation. I think what has happened in the past is that because people didn't see it as having quote-unquote value, a lot of people would have shied away from it and say, oh, these are just things that you do if you can't succeed otherwise. And so, oh, you're going to be a painter, or you're going to get involved with computers and blah, blah, blah. You know, I think there's a re-educating that has to be done, not only just for the children, but for the educators themselves, in broadening the scope of that conversation, so that when people talk about the arts, we talk about innovation, we talk about other things, that the whole idea of ownership, the copyright, the infringement of it, why it is important that you purchase certain things and not go for bootlegs and all this sort of stuff, that helps to lift your society to another level in terms of understanding how all of these things are connected and how they affect the creators and the people who have to market them, and the people who have to sell them, and all that sort of stuff. So I agree with you. You need to start at the earliest level possible, but it has to be ongoing, because as the world changes, the laws and things are going to change too.
All right. I could talk to you all day, because the cultural industry, the arts, the orange economy is something that I'm very excited about. I think many of us are excited about. And are there any other details you would like to add as we wrap up?
Well, I think we covered a lot of things, but fashion is one of those things that people in Barbados don't talk a lot about. You know, we have some fantastic fashion designers, both veteran and young and upcoming. And I would really love to see the day when, I wouldn't call any names of any other things that come to us from outside of Barbados, but I would love to see the day when we can replace them and feel proud to wear the things that are made here by our own people. I think that would be a step in the right direction. And again, I will reach out to the diaspora to be our first target market outside that can support the things that our people do. And I think that once we begin to have that national conversation and that new national consciousness, so to speak, about the things that we create, and to love them the same way that we love the other things from other places, where the people who produce them are held up to iconic status in their own countries, and then we jump onto the bandwagon. I like to see it reversed, so that we create our own icons and then have other people jump onto the bandwagon.
Right. Minister King, it was an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am.
This has been UNCTAD Conversations with Minister John King, the minister responsible for culture. Bye-bye, everybody.